Hello, my name is Abel Pena, and my film title is By Design. This is for my sister. She still lives on these streets, the same ones we grew up on. She watches our neighborhood struggle, sees new apartments going up that we can't afford, and wonders why it never gets better. She thinks it's just the way things are, but she's wrong. The struggles she sees every day are not random. They are not inevitable. They are the result of specific policies decisions made decades ago by institutions that still hold power today. Due to the LA County Developmental Authority's past failures that have shaped Los Angeles' deeply segregated landscape, it must integrate the principles of diversity into its urban planning policies. This means reinvesting in a historically redlined neighborhood like ours, because addressing these spatial axes of inequality is essential to improving the psychological and developmental outcomes of Hispanic adolescents in this county. Buchanan's Appending Racism in Psychological Science reveals that the LA County Developmental Authority, as a current steward of a sinful system, perpetuates harm against Hispanic adolescents in LA through passive administration rather than active malice by simply maintaining the segregated status quo it inherited. Buchanan helped me understand my stakeholder, the LA County Developmental Authority, by revealing how institutions can perpetuate harm through passive practices rather than active malice. This resource argues that racism in an institution isn't always about explicit discrimination or hateful individuals. It is often perpetuated through passive practices rather than maintain the status quo, failing to actively correct historical wrongs, and administering programs without questioning the unequal landscape they operate within. This is the LA County Development Authority. They are not the original sinners who drew up the redlining maps in the 1930s, but by simply administering housing programs within the segregated landscape they inherited, by not actively working to erase those lines, they become the current steward of a sinful system. They do not have to be evil to be complicit, they just have to do nothing. This directly applies to my thesis by identifying the mechanism of harm, passive administration. This Malcolm X speech really ties this all together as it illustrates how systems maintain control without visible force, directly supporting Buchanan's framework of passive institutional harm. So here it'll play.
The white man is too intelligent to let someone else come and gain control of the economy of his community. But you will let anybody come in and control the economy of your community. Control the housing, control the education, control the jobs, control the businesses under the pretext that you want to integrate. No, you're out of your mind.
Cano helps me understand my stakeholder by providing empirical evidence that the conditions the LA County Development Authority manages segregated neighborhoods, concentrated poverty, and unstable housing have direct psychological consequences. Their study shows that cultural stress, including ethnic discrimination, bicultural stress, and negative context of reception directly predicts depressive symptoms, cigarette smoking, binge drinking, aggression, and rule breaking among Hispanic immigrant adolescents. My sister does not need to study to know our neighborhood is stressful, but this research gives that feeling a name and a mechanism. It shows that the chronic stress of living in a neglected environment elevates cortisol in Hispanic adolescents. This literally impairs the brain development, affecting impulse control and emotional regulation and leading to the very depression and anxiety we see in our own younger relatives at schools like Roosevelt High School. This section supports my thesis by proving the consequences of the LACDA's inaction. It is not just about bad housing policy, it is about how the policy creates a toxic stress environment that damages kids' brains. Miller helps me understand my stakeholder by offering a roadmap for what the LA County Development Authority could do differently. Miller provides 5 principles for generative research and policy, incorporating historical patterns of oppression, building racially diverse teams, utilizing diverse samples, applying intersectional frameworks, and translating knowledge into real-world interventions. This is the how, the framework for moving from passive administration to active repair. We must demand more than surface-level changes from the LACDA. For them, this means a complete overhaul of how they measure success. It is not about to just build an X number of units. They must measure where the Hispanic adolescents living in their jurisdiction experience improved psychological and developmental outcomes. They must ask, are the kids in our communities healthier because of our investments? Are their stress levels lower? Are their schools better? Miller gives us the tools to demand these questions be asked. Zoe and Durago helped me understand my stakeholder by mapping the very landscape the LA County Development Authority manages. They show how the color line in Los Angeles is not just a historical artifact, it is a living, breathing boundary that shapes where people can live, what resources they have access to, and what opportunities their children inherit. Their research reveals two distinct axes of inequality in LA: a clear black Latino axis of shared disadvantage in South Central, and a blurred white Asian axis in the San Gabriel Valley. When I overlay the old redlining maps from the 1930s with the map of where poverty is concentrated today, the line does not move. It is the same shape. The LCDA did not draw these lines, but by administering the housing policy within them, by not actively working to erase them, they preserved them. For my sister, this section connects to the abstract concept of segregation, to literal streets she walks every day. This PBS SoCal documentary demonstrates how decades of discriminatory policy created the concentrated disenvestment that Zoe and Durago map, and that the LA County Development Authority now passively manages, which we'll play right now.
Real estate industry starts using race covenants to ensure that there's a distance between white and black populations. Then you start seeing the rise of things like a code of ethics. The real estate code of ethics was designed to bring uniformity to how realtors approach selling property across the United States. But what it had in it is that you couldn't introduce people from a different ethnic or racial class that would be detrimental to the property values of others.
The LA County Development Authority has a direct interest in the topic of racism, psychological and developmental sciences, because its housing policies create the environmental conditions that either protect or damage adolescents' development. This is not an abstract academic debate. Every decision about where to place affordable housing, which neighborhoods receive community development funds, and how to address historical redlining literally shapes the stress levels, brain development, and mental health outcomes of Hispanic adolescents across this county. If they continue this passive administration with segregated patterns, they remain complicit in producing the very mental health crisis we now claim to be concerned about. But if they integrate the diversity science into their planning, they can become part of the solution. Use reinvestment in historically redlined neighborhoods to actively improve psychological outcomes. The LA County Development Authority has a direct interest in South Central Los Angeles because this fault line falls within its jurisdiction and presents the clearest example of the spatial inequality zone Durago map. South Central is where the Black Latino axis of shared disadvantage manifests most visibly concentrated poverty, disinvestment, environmental racism, and under-resourced schools. The decision about where to place affordable housing, which neighborhoods receive community development funds, and how to address historical redlining all play out on the specific terrain. The LCDA cannot claim this is someone else's problem. These are the communities they are mandated to serve. Our streets, our neighborhoods, luxury apartments going up aren't development, they're displacement. The LCDA's interest isn't just bureaucratic, it's geographical. This is about our home. As you can see from this video, where the Jordantown projects are going down, new apartments are going up, which I doubt will go to people that already live there. The LA County Development Authority's past failures in South Central, maintaining rather than dismantling segregation, have directly contributed to the conditions that produce negative psychological and developmental outcomes for Hispanic adolescents. Their passive administration in South Central, failing to proactively desegregate, failing to challenge local laws that keep affordable housing out of wealthy areas, has made them a direct contributor to the stress Cano document. They can no longer claim ignorance. The maps from Zoe, the designs from Buchanan, the video from Cano, they all prove the problem and mechanism. When you know the truth and do nothing, you are just as guilty as the one doing the harm. The only question is whether they will continue business as usual or finally act. This section turns my sister's frustrations into a focused demand. directed at the specific institutions that has the power to change things but has chosen not to. The LA County Development Authority must begin reinvesting in historically redlined neighborhoods like South Central, using diversity science principles to guide its planning policies. This means prioritizing affordable housing development in high opportunity areas and not just building more units in clearly overcrowded neighborhoods. It means providing mobility counseling for Section 8 voucher holders so families can actively move to neighborhoods with good schools and parks. It means challenging local exclusionary zoning, fighting the city councils that want to keep those people out. And most importantly, it means measuring success not by units built, but by the improvements in psychological and development outcomes in Hispanic adolescents living in this jurisdiction. We have to make the system hear us. This is what we're demanding. This is the entire purpose of the organization from the beginning. This section gives my sister the ammunition she needs. It's not just a complaint, it's a policy platform. So sis, when you walk those streets tomorrow, know this: the struggle you see is not a mystery. Buchanan showed us it's an institution choosing passivity over repair. Cano proved it's a stress hormone spiking in a child's brain. Miller gave us the roadmap to fix it. Zoe showed us the map that was drawn by redlining, and Malcolm X reminded us that we have to demand more that silence and inaction are the enemy. But a map can be redrawn, stress can be eased, and institutions can be forced to change. The LA County Development Authority has the power to reinvest, to integrate, and finally measure its success not by building near regs, but by the lives it uplifts. The question is not whether our community deserves better. We always have. The question is whether we will demand it. This film is my proof that the fight is worth it. Now let's go win it. This TikTok I found explains how historical redlining maps directly correlate with the present-day concentrated poverty and disinvestment, visually proving that the lines drawn in the 1930s continue to shape the landscape that the LA County Development Authority manages today. Here it will play.
I'm going to show you modern-day segregation. Come on. This is a nice little neighborhood here in Inglewood, California, but it's also right next to a freeway. Now, all I did was go to the other side of the freeway, and the neighborhood is, pretty much the same. Doesn't look that much different, but guess what? For some reason, houses on this side of the freeway cost twice as much as they do over in Inglewood.